Months turned into a year, then two. The new Terra skyline continued to shimmer, perhaps a little brighter, a little more resilient. The memory of Ambassador Vlor's death remained a stark reminder, but it was no longer a festering wound. It was a scar, a mark of survival. Elias Vance slowly, painstakingly, began the long road to recovery. His mind, once a chaotic landscape, started to find equilibrium, purged of the Void Weaver's influence. It was a testament to the advanced interspecies therapy that even such deep-seated corruption could be addressed. He would never be the man he once was, but he was no longer a vessel for hatred, a muted, melancholic figure who sometimes, on good days, remembered his nephew. Kalen Vance, now a decorated peacekeeper and a reluctant public figure, continued his work, but with a profound shift in perspective. He still investigated crimes, but his focus had expanded to include the subtle social and psychological fissures that the Void Weavers exploited. He lectured at the Peacekeeper Academy, sharing the insights gleaned from the First Shard, teaching new recruits not just how to fight crime, but how to safeguard galactic unity. Lyra, elevated to a position of even greater influence within the Xylosian consensus, became a leading voice for galactic mental health initiatives, advocating for programs that built resilience against divisive influences. Her diplomatic endeavors now included deeper dives into cross-species psychological integration, drawing directly from the information in the First Shard. She often found herself collaborating with Kalen on joint task forces, their combined expertise invaluable. Their bond, forged in the crucible of crisis, deepened with each passing cycle. They were no longer just partners in an investigation. They were trusted confidants, friends who understood the quiet weight of responsibility they carried. They would often meet for shared meals, or simply for quiet contemplation in the interspecies gardens of New Terra, reflecting on the fragility and enduring strength of the peace they had fought so hard to preserve. One evening, as the twin moons of New Terra cast long, shimmering shadows, Kalen and Lyra sat by a bioluminescent pond, watching Xylosian and human children play together, their laughter echoing in the twilight. "It held," Kalen said softly, a rare smile on his face. "The peace. It truly held." Lyra turned her head, her luminous eyes reflecting the light of the pond. "It did, but it is not a static thing, Kalen. It is a living entity, requiring constant nourishment, constant vigilance. We learned that the hard way. And we learned that the enemy ISN isn't always something you can point a weapon at." Kalen mused. "Sometimes it's a whisper in the mind." Lyra reached out one of her slender hands and gently touched his arm. Her touch was light, yet filled with profound meaning. And sometimes the greatest strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in the will to understand, in the courage to bridge divides, in the unlikely alliance between a human detective and a Xylosian diplomat. Kalen looked at the children, then at Lyra. The Golden Age was not an uninterrupted idyll, but a hard-won reality, forged in the fires of near disaster. It was a peace built on the understanding of vulnerability, the strength of unity, and the enduring belief that even in the face of ancient malice, sentient beings could choose connection over conflict. The future was uncertain, as it always was, but Kalen and Lyra, together, represented a new dawn, a renewed hope for true interspecies harmony, forever vigilant, forever united. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to join our community. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. The year is 2742, and the sprawling metropolis of New Terra stood as a gleaming testament to an impossible dream made real. Spire-like buildings, crafted from spun glass and self-repairing alloys, kissed a sky crisscrossed by silent anti-gravity transports. Below, the streets teemed not just with humans, but with beings of astounding diversity. The multi-limbed Xylosians, their bioluminescent skin shifting in gentle patterns. The stoic, crystalline Karadhar, their voices resonating like wind chimes. The agile, winged Aryans, graceful even in dense urban environments. They moved together, worked together, lived together. For over 5 centuries, since the First Contact War, a brief, terrifying, and ultimately unifying conflict, peace had reigned across the Milky Way's burgeoning galactic commonwealth. Humanity, once considered aggressive and unpredictable, had shed its warlike reputation through generations of dedicated diplomacy, technological exchange, and a steadfast commitment to universal betterment. Their ingenuity, once directed at self-destruction, now fueled incredible advancements shared freely amongst the allied species. The Xylosians, renowned for their empathetic communication and bioengineering prowess, had been instrumental in forging the initial bonds. Their philosophy, centered on the interconnectedness of all life, resonated deeply with the newly matured human spirit, weary of conflict. On this particular morning, Detective Kalen Vance, a man whose weary eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 city nights, sipped nutrient paste from a recycled scent mug in his cramped apartment overlooking the Neo-Central District. His uniform, a crisp black tunic with the silver and emerald insignia of the interstellar peacekeepers, was a stark contrast to the comfortable clutter of his living space. Kalen had seen the dark underbelly of New Terra, the petty squabbles, the occasional tech heist, the disputes over energy distribution, but never, not once in his 20 years on the Force, had he dealt with anything that truly threatened the bedrock of the galactic peace. Violent crime, especially against another species, was almost unheard of. It was a golden age, indeed, one built on sacrifice, trust, and an unwavering belief in unity. Across the district, in the elegant, organic architecture of the Xylosian embassy, Ambassador Lyra meticulously reviewed holographic reports from a diplomatic summit on environmental reclamation. Her 4 slender arms moved with practiced grace across the light tables, her luminous green skin pulsating softly with concentration. Lyra was a rising star in Xylosian politics, known for her sharp intellect, her unwavering commitment to interspecies harmony, and a surprising, almost human-like sense of humor that often disarmed even the most rigid negotiators. Her species had paid a heavy price in the First Contact War, a conflict they had not sought but endured with fierce determination. The ensuing peace was not just a political construct for Lyra. It was a sacred trust, a living testament to the sacrifices of her ancestors and the enduring hope of the present. The peace wasn't just a political ideal. It was woven into the fabric of daily life. Human children learned Xylosian poetry in school, their young minds absorbing the fluid, multi-layered nuances of the language. Xylosian engineers collaborated with Terran scientists on groundbreaking warp drive designs, pushing the boundaries of interstellar travel. K'Arthar artists lectured at human universities, sharing their unique perspectives on crystalline resonance art. Cultural fusion was the norm, celebrated and encouraged. Mixed species families were common, their unique challenges and joys documented in popular holodramas. This era of unprecedented cooperation had lifted all species, propelling them into an age of scientific discovery, artistic flourishing, and profound understanding. No one imagined it could ever end. The chime of Kalen's come unit was jarring, slicing through the mundane hum of his morning routine. It wasn't the usual precinct alert. This was a high-priority, encrypted channel, reserved for situations of extreme interspecies sensitivity. His gaze sharpened. "Vance," he answered, his voice a low rumble. "Detective, emergency call from the Xylosian Cultural Exchange Center, Sector 7. Code Gamma 7. Immediate response required." The dispatcher's voice was clipped, devoid of the usual pleasantries. Gamma 7, the code for interspecies incident with potential political ramifications. Kalen's gut tightened. This wasn't a tech heist. He was on site within minutes, his speeder weaving expertly through the morning traffic. The Xylosian Cultural Exchange Center was a hub of vibrant activity, normally buzzing with students and tourists admiring ancient Xylosian artifacts or participating in meditative workshops. Today, it was a scene of stark, controlled chaos. Peacekeeper drones hovered silently, illuminating a cordoned-off section of the main exhibition hall. Xylosian security personnel, their normally calm expressions etched with alarm, moved with unusual urgency. As Kalen pushed through the perimeter, a younger Xylosian officer, her bioluminescence dimmed to a dull pulse of distress, gestured wordlessly towards a figure slumped against a pedestal displaying a millennia-old Xylosian tapestry. The sight hit Kalen like a physical blow. The victim was undoubtedly Xylosian. Their normally vibrant green skin was mottled and lifeless, their forelimbs twisted at unnatural angles. A single, gaping wound, precise and deep, was visible over the primary heart sac. Blood of viscous, dark indigo, stained the ancient fabric. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a dispute. This was murder. "Who is it?" Kalen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Xylosian officer trembled. Ambassador Vlor. He was due to give a lecture this morning. Ambassador Vlor. The name reverberated through Kalen. Vlor was not just an ambassador. He was a scholar, revered historian, a proponent of the very peace they all lived under. He was a symbol, and now he was dead, at the hands of a human. The chilling realization settled over Kalen. The wound, upon closer inspection, was consistent with the Terran energy blade, a relic from the First Contact War era, technically outlawed but still in circulation in illegal markets. The news spread like wildfire through the city's comnet. Panic, raw and unfamiliar, began to ripple through the populace. The Golden Age, for the first time in 5 centuries, felt fragile, its foundations suddenly cracking under the weight of an unthinkable act. The fear wasn't just of crime. It was of something far more terrifying. The fear of a return to the old ways, to the distrust and suspicion that had nearly consumed them all. The peace was not just threatened, it felt, in that moment, as though it was bleeding out alongside Ambassador Vlor. Back at the Xylosian embassy, Ambassador Lyra's comm unit flared with an urgent notification. She answered, her usual composed demeanor giving way to an expression of profound shock as the words of her aide reached her. Ambassador Vlor murdered? In the Cultural Exchange Center? Her luminescent skin flickered erratically, a sign of extreme distress. By a human weapon. The last words were barely a whisper, laden with a weight that threatened to crush the fragile peace she had dedicated her life to upholding. The silence that followed was deafening, filled only with the buzzing dread of an unthinkable future. The Golden Age had ended. The first shadow had fallen. The atmosphere in the interstellar peacekeepers' high command chamber was thick with tension, palpable enough to choke. Holographic displays flickered with grim statistics. News feeds blared with rising public unrest, and the faces of human and Xylosian officials alike were grim, etched with a mixture of anger, fear, and deep sorrow. Kalen Vance stood beside Director Anya Sharma, the stern, unyielding head of the peacekeepers, facing a council that included several high-ranking Xylosian dignitaries. Ambassador Lyra, her luminescent skin a somber gray, stood prominently among them, her 4 arms clasped tightly before her. "The evidence is conclusive," Director Sharma stated, her voice devoid of emotion, though her eyes betrayed the strain. Ambassador Vlor was killed by a Terran-manufactured energy blade. Preliminary forensic analysis confirms the energy signature matches a pre-Commonwealth, Class 3 weapon. A collective gasp, human and Xylosian, rippled through the chamber. The implications were horrifying. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was deliberate, and the choice of weapon was a deliberate provocation, a stark reminder of a past everyone had worked so hard to bury. A Xylosian elder, his skin a deep, ancient purple, spoke, his voice resonating with a deep, mournful tone. 5 centuries of peace, built on the blood of our ancestors. Are we to see it crumble now, because of one act of barbarism? The Terran Commonwealth unequivocally condemns this act, Director Sharma responded, her gaze unwavering. We will find the perpetrator, and they will face the full extent of interspecies justice. Then Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her voice surprisingly steady, though her inner turmoil was evident in the subtle flicker of her skin. Condemnations are necessary, Director, but action is paramount. My people are on edge. The initial reports have caused profound disquiet. We need to demonstrate, with absolute clarity, that this is not a betrayal by humanity. This is an aberration, an evil act perpetrated by an individual, not a species. She turned her luminous gaze directly to Kalen. "Detective Vance, your reputation precedes you. You are known for your diligence, your impartiality, your human tenacity." There was a hint of a challenge in her words, but also a glimmer of desperate hope. "My government requests that a Xylosian representative be directly involved in this investigation, not as an observer, but as an active partner, and I volunteer myself." A murmur spread through the room. A diplomat, not a security operative, involving herself in a murder investigation? It was unprecedented. Director Sharma looked at Kalen, a silent question passing between them. Kalen, however, was already considering it. Her presence would lend immense credibility to the Xylosian people, showing their direct involvement and trust in the process. It would also be a political minefield. "Ambassador, with all due respect," Kalen began, "this is a criminal investigation. It requires specific expertise, access to restricted data, and a willingness to confront unpleasant truths." "I am fully aware of the demands, Detective," Lyra cut in, her voice firm. "My diplomatic training has prepared me for negotiation, for navigating complex political landscapes, and I assure you, few truths are as unpleasant as the potential collapse of 5 centuries of peace. I bring a comprehensive understanding of Xylosian culture, our societal nuances, and our historical grievances, knowledge that may be vital in understanding why Vlor was targeted, and how this act might be perceived by my people. Furthermore," she added, her gaze sweeping over the council, "my presence will assure my people that the investigation is conducted with the utmost transparency and respect for Xylosian customs." Director Sharma nodded slowly. A shrewd proposal, Ambassador, and one that could very well be the key to maintaining stability. She looked at Kalen. "Detective Vance, you will head this investigation. Ambassador Lyra will serve as your co-lead. You will have full access to all peacekeeper resources, and Ambassador Lyra will be granted equivalent authority." Kalen felt a reluctant acceptance settle over him. This was uncharted territory. A human detective and an alien diplomat, tasked with solving a murder that could unravel galactic peace. It was an unholy alliance, born of desperate necessity. He met Lyra's gaze. Her eyes, pools of shimmering emerald, held a fierce determination that mirrored his own. "Understood, Director," Kalen said, inclining his head. Lyra offered a stiff, formal bow. "I look forward to our collaboration, Detective Vance." The weight of the galaxy seemed to settle on their shoulders in that moment. The peace they sought to protect was not some abstract concept. It was the laughter of mixed-species children, the shared meals, the silent understanding across species lines. And now, it was bruised, bleeding, and looking to them for healing. The crime scene, even hours after the discovery, still radiated a profound sense of violation. Kalen and Lyra stood together amidst the holographic markers and forensic drones, the air cold and sterile despite the lingering scent of Xylosian biofluids and the metallic tang of Terran energy residue. "The weapon," Kalen said, gesturing to a flickering orange outline on the floor, was a pre-Commonwealth energy blade. Low power, designed for close-quarters combat. Most have been decommissioned or rendered inert. Lyra knelt, her 4-fingered hands hovering over the outline. A statement then. Not just a killing, but a message. Her voice was soft, but the underlying steel was unmistakable. This specific type of weapon, it was prominent in the early days of the First Contact War, before the peace accords. "Exactly," Kalen affirmed. "It screams human extremist. Someone who wants to ignite old hatreds. But we need hard evidence, not assumptions." He gestured to the perimeter. "Forensics is processing every square millimeter. They're looking for any stray fibers, genetic markers, anything." The building's internal surveillance network was disrupted. "Convenient," Lyra mused, rising gracefully. A targeted attack, precise and deliberate. Ambassador Vlor was known for his advocacy of deeper integration, even proposing joint human-Xylosian colonization efforts on new worlds. He was a symbol of the peace. So the killer picked a high-profile target to cause maximum disruption, Kalen concluded. But how did they get in undetected, disable the surveillance, and escape from a public cultural center without a trace. Perhaps, Lyra suggested, her luminous eyes scanning the opulent hall. They were already inside, or they had assistants. Their first set of interviews was with the Cultural Exchange Center staff. A nervous human archivist, barely able to meet Kalen's gaze, recounted seeing Ambassador Vlor arrive early, as was his custom, to review the display for his lecture. He recalled nothing unusual. A Xylosian curator, visibly distraught, spoke of Vlor's kindness and dedication. No enemies, no threats. Everyone painted a picture of a universally respected figure. Too clean, Kalen muttered as they walked away from the interview rooms. Nobody has no enemies, especially not someone as prominent as Vlor. Lyra nodded. Indeed, we must consider the possibility that the perpetrator cultivated a persona of benevolence, masking a deeper, more insidious agenda, or that Vlor's public image concealed private dealings that might have made him a target. The only physical lead we have right now is the weapons signature, Kalen said, tapping his comm unit. I've put out an alert for any registered or unregistered class, 3 energy blades. But given how old they are, it's a needle in a haystack. Then we must expand the haystack, Lyra countered. We need to understand Vlor's recent activities, beyond his public engagements. Who did he meet? What projects was he working on? Was there any dissent within his own circle regarding his integrationist views? Good point, Kalen conceded. You have better access to Xylosian diplomatic channels and personal records. I'll focus on the Terran side, who might own such a weapon, and who benefits from shattering the peace. They agreed to split their initial efforts. Kalen would delve into the shadowy underworld of relic arms dealing and human extremist groups, while Lyra would navigate the intricate web of Xylosian politics and Vlor's personal life. The immediate tension between them, born of professional rivalry and species-based caution, had begun to recede, replaced by a growing, albeit fragile, sense of shared purpose. They were 2 disparate pieces of a puzzle, but they both understood the enormity of the picture they were trying to put back together. The first shadow had fallen, but their alliance was beginning to cast its own light. Kalen's investigation led him deep into the grimy underbelly of New Terra, a stark contrast to the gleaming spires of the city center. He found himself in the forgotten industrial sectors, where rusty synth-steel buildings squatted under a perpetually gray sky, and the air hung heavy with the scent of ozone and forgotten dreams. Here, away from the watchful eyes of the galactic government, old hatreds sometimes festered. His first stop was a notorious information broker known only as Whisper, a gaunt human with more cybernetic implants than natural flesh, who operated out of a perpetually dim cantina. Whisper dealt in secrets, rumors, and illegal tech. Class 3 energy blade, huh, Vance? Whisper rasped, his optical implant whirring as he analyzed Kalen's query. Collector's items, mostly. Rich xenophobes who like to pretend they're still fighting the good fight. Any recent transactions? Any names pop up? Kalen pressed, sliding a credit chip across the worn synthwood table. Whisper's mechanical fingers danced across his datapad. There was a surge of interest a few months back. A few dozen units moved, most through untraceable channels. But one name, the Purifiers. They've been getting more vocal lately. Anti-alien rhetoric, online forums, isolated skirmishes with Xylosian youth. Nothing major until now, but they're growing. The Purifiers, Kalen repeated, a knot tightening in his stomach. He knew the name. They were a fringe group, small enough to be dismissed as harmless fanatics, but their rhetoric was poisonous. They believed in human genetic purity, in an idealized past where humanity reigned supreme, untouched by alien influence. They called for a return to Terran sovereignty, and saw the Xylosian alliance as a weakness, a dilution of human strength. He spent the next few days sifting through their online manifestos, their encrypted chat logs, and the sparse police reports related to their activities. He found a distinct escalation in their vitriol after Ambassador Vlor's proposed joint colonization initiative, an initiative that directly challenged their isolationist ideology. One name kept recurring, Marcus Thorne, a charismatic but dangerous leader, a former military strategist disgraced for advocating preemptive strikes against alien populations during the twilight of the First Contact War. Thorne had been a vocal critic of Vlor, accusing him of diluting humanity's birthright. Kalen brought his findings to Lyra, who met him in a secure peacekeeper briefing room. She reviewed the data with an unnerving calm. Their ideology is primitive, based on fear and a distorted sense of historical grievance, Lyra observed. Her skin a steady green, but its potential for destruction is undeniable. Thorne's rhetoric could easily incite fragile minds. He's a prime suspect, Kalen agreed. He has the motive, the means, and the ideology. But we need more than a theory. We need to tie him directly to Vlor's murder. He visited Thorne's known addresses, his former associates. The man was a ghost, leaving no digital footprint beyond his public pronouncements. It was as if he'd vanished after Vlor's death, going deeper underground. He's either very good or very well protected, Kalen concluded, or both. Their efforts to locate Thorne proved fruitless. The Purifier's cells were tight-knit, their members fanatically loyal. Even with peacekeeper resources, they couldn't get a definitive lead on Thorne's current whereabouts. The human element of the investigation, initially so clear-cut, was proving to be a frustrating labyrinth. The obvious suspect was elusive, making the initial assumption of a simple xenophobic killer feel too convenient. Kalen couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just a fringe group. The precision of the attack, the disabling of the surveillance, it felt too professional for fanatical amateurs. It's almost as if, Lyra commented, her brow ridge furrowing as she reviewed the lack of progress. He was deliberately left as the obvious choice, a convenient scapegoat. If Thorne is truly responsible, why is he so difficult to locate given the resources available? Kalen considered this. You're suggesting a misdirection? It is a possibility we cannot ignore, Lyra confirmed. Perhaps the human element is not as straightforward as it appears. The investigation, once seemingly pointed, was beginning to twist into something far more intricate. While Kalen navigated the murky waters of human extremism, Lyra immersed herself in the intricate currents of Xylosian society. Her task was no less challenging. Xylosian politics, though seemingly serene to outsiders, were a delicate tapestry woven with ancient traditions, subtle power dynamics, and a profound respect for reputation. To unearth any potential enemies of Ambassador Vlor, she had to peel back layers of politeness and societal decorum. Her first step was to access Vlor's personal data logs and communications. Xylosian privacy protocols were strict, but her diplomatic authority, coupled with the urgency of the investigation, granted her unprecedented access. She discovered Vlor had been meticulously documenting his work on the Joint Colonization Initiative, detailing logistical challenges, resource allocation, and potential planetary candidates. Most of it was benign, standard diplomatic work. However, a subtle pattern began to emerge in the marginalia of his private notes. Vlor had been receiving what he termed persistent queries from a conservative faction within Xylosian society, the preservationists. This group, while publicly supporting peace, harbored a deep-seated caution about too much interspecies integration. They argued that extensive human Xylosian colonization would dilute Xylosian cultural identity, expose their unique bioengineering secrets, and potentially lead to an over-reliance on Terran technology. Their leader was Elder Forlag, respected, if somewhat rigid, figure in the Xylosian High Council. Lyra arranged a discreet meeting with Forlag at a secluded Xylosian meditation garden. Forlag, his ancient purple skin rippling with subtle shifts of color indicating his mood, greeted her with formal courtesy. Ambassador Lyra, Forlag stated, his voice a deep, resonant hum. It is a profound tragedy, the loss of Vlor, a dark stain on the tapestry of our peace. Indeed, Elder, Lyra replied, matching his formal tone. It is in service of that peace that I must ask you frankly, if Ambassador Vlor had any enemies within Xylosian society, specifically regarding the Joint Colonization Initiative. Forlag's skin rippled, turning a shade of pale violet, a sign of mild discomfort. Vlor was a visionary, But his vision, perhaps, was too rapid for some. The preservationists believe in a slower, more cautious integration. We fear the erosion of our unique heritage. Did these disagreements ever escalate beyond philosophical debate? Lyra pressed, her gaze unwavering. Were there threats? Covert actions? Forelag sighed, a sound like rustling leaves. Threats? No, Ambassador. Such behavior is anathema to our way. We are a people of discourse, not violence. We merely presented our concerns through established channels. He paused, then continued. However, Vlor was inflexible. He dismissed our concerns, believing his path was the only path forward. This caused some resentment, yes, but not hatred, Lyra. Never hatred leading to such an act. Lyra noted the shift in his tone, from formal to slightly more personal. It was a subtle invitation to confide. Elder, Lyra continued, was there any other project Vlor was involved in, perhaps something sensitive or personal, that might have been unknown to the wider council? Forelag hesitated, his skin flickering to a faint blue contemplation. Vlor had a passion for ancient Xylosian history. He was delving into the First Shard prophecies, an esoteric set of texts from before the First Contact War. They speak of a time of great galactic upheaval, and how the Xylosians and the yet unidentified kindred spirit would emerge from the chaos to forge a new era of understanding. He believed humans were that kindred spirit. Some considered his focus on these prophecies obsessive. Others, including myself, viewed it as a distraction from present realities. The First Shard prophecies, Lyra murmured. She knew of them. They were largely dismissed as myth. Did this research cause him any trouble? Not trouble, precisely, Forelag clarified, but he did acquire certain artifacts related to the prophecies. One in particular, a crystalline data shard, was said to contain a hidden layer of information, a key to understanding the deeper meaning. He was very secretive about it, working on it alone. This was a lead. Something Vlor was doing outside his public duties, something secretive. It offered a potential motive beyond his public role as a symbol of peace. Lyra thanked Forelag and left, her mind racing. The Xylosian element was not about extremist groups, but about ancient prophecies, hidden artifacts, and subtle internal politics. The idea of a human-Xylosian joint venture had its detractors, but it seemed unlikely to directly lead to murder from the Xylosian side. Yet, the crystalline data shard, that felt significant. It introduced a new, intriguing layer to the mystery, one that twisted away from the immediate political implications and into something far older and more arcane. Armed with a new lead, Kaelin and Lyra reconvened, sharing their findings. The contrast between Marcus Thorne's overt, xenophobic rhetoric and Ambassador Vlor's secretive research into ancient prophecies was stark. So, on my side, we have a clear, ideological motive, but an elusive suspect, Kaelin summarized. On your side, a hidden project, an esoteric motive, and a tangible, missing artifact, a crystalline data shard. The First Shard prophecies describe a key to unlocking deeper understanding, Lyra explained, projecting a holographic depiction of the ancient texts. Vlor believed this key was encoded within a specific type of crystalline matrix, distinct from our common data storage. If he found it, and it contained information of significant value or danger, it could be a powerful motive. But who would know he had it and wanted enough to kill him? Kaelin pondered. And how would a human extremist like Thorne even know about Xylosian prophecies, let alone steal a specific data shard? A new, unsettling possibility began to form. What if the two seemingly disparate paths of their investigation were connected? What if the human element, Thorne and the Purifiers, was a deliberate distraction, orchestrated by someone who truly wanted the data shard? They returned to the Xylosian Cultural Exchange Center, this time focusing their efforts on the area where Vlor was found, searching specifically for any signs related to the crystalline shard. Forensic analysis had yielded no trace of it among Vlor's effects or at the scene. If he had it with him, it's gone, Kaelin stated, which points to theft. But why murder? Why not just steal it? Perhaps Vlor resisted, Lyra suggested, her luminous gaze sweeping the room. Or perhaps the killer wanted to send a message, to make it appear as a human act of xenophobia, drawing attention away from the true motive, the shard itself. Kalen brought in a specialist from the Peacekeepers' Ancient Tech Division, Dr. Eris Thorne, no relation to Marcus Thorne, much to Kalen's silent relief. A wizened human xenolinguist with a penchant for arcane knowledge. Dr. Thorne confirmed the rarity of the class, 3-energy blade, but also pointed out a subtle detail. This particular weapon, Dr. Thorne explained, tapping a holographic render of the energy blade's signature, shows traces of aftermarket modification. A rare energy dampener. It would suppress the weapon's signature just enough to evade standard Peacekeeper scans for a short window during egress, but not enough to completely mask the weapon type upon forensic analysis. This was a critical piece of information. It indicated a level of sophistication beyond what Kalen had attributed to the purifiers. It suggested someone who understood Peacekeeper protocols, someone who knew how to commit a murder and make it look like a specific kind of crime. An energy dampener, Lyra mused. That is highly specialized, not something a typical extremist would have access to, or even know how to utilize effectively. Unless they had help, Kalen concluded, his mind racing through the possibilities. Someone with a deeper understanding of tech, someone with a different agenda. The investigation twisted sharply. The obvious human suspect, Marcus Thorne, now seemed almost too perfect. The missing crystalline shard, the specialized weapon modification, the deliberate disabling of surveillance, it all pointed to a more intricate plot. The murder of Ambassador Vlor was not just about shattering peace, but about acquiring something valuable. And the blame, strategically placed on a human extremist, was a smokescreen. The real killer was someone who wanted both the shard and the ensuing chaos to cover their tracks. We need to look for someone who has the technical knowledge for the dampener, Kalen said, and the understanding of Xylosian lore to know about the first shard prophecies and Vlor's research. Lyra's 4 hands brushed against each other in a gesture of deep thought. Someone who could move in both human and Xylosian circles. Someone who could orchestrate a diversion while pursuing a hidden agenda. The path forward was no longer clear, but intricately tangled, revealing a conspiracy far more complex than this simple act of hatred. As the investigation spiraled into a complex web of deceit and hidden motives, Kalen and Lyra found themselves spending increasingly long hours together. The initial professional courtesy had slowly, imperceptibly, begun to evolve into something deeper, a shared understanding, a mutual respect, and even, at times, a flicker of genuine camaraderie. They ate meals together, Kalen with his protein bars and scent juice, Lyra with her nutrient-rich algae pastes, often exchanging amused glances at each other's dietary choices. They debated theories late into the night, their voices low and intense, fueled by copious amounts of stem tea for Kalen and glowing Xylosian bioelixirs for Lyra. One evening, after hitting yet another dead end in tracking the modified energy dampener, Kalen leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This is like trying to find a ripple in a black hole. Who has this level of technical expertise, access to ancient tech, and knowledge of obscure Xylosian prophecies? Lyra, who had been meticulously reviewing Vlor's financial records, paused. Perhaps we're looking for a single individual who possesses all these disparate skills. What if it is not one person, but a small, coordinated group? A conspiracy? Kalen asked, looking at her. It's starting to feel that way. Someone is pulling strings, making Marcus Thorne look like the obvious killer. Lyra's luminous eyes met his. It would be a highly sophisticated act of manipulation, to incite fear between species, to create a smokescreen for a deeper objective. She extended one of her slender fingers towards him, offering a small, pulsating sphere of Xylosian light. This is a memory weaver sphere. It helps with focus, clarity of thought, our equivalent of your stem tea. Kalen hesitated, then took it. It pulsed warmly in his hand, a soft, soothing glow. Thanks, Lyra. Kalen, she corrected gently, a rare, soft smile playing on her lips. We have been working together for weeks. It is time we shed some of these formal designations. He smiled back, a genuine, tired smile. Kalen then, and Lyra. All right. The shift, though subtle, felt significant. During a particularly frustrating period where they kept running into encrypted walls and false leads, Kalen found himself confiding in Lyra about his early days as a detective, the pressures of upholding peace in a sprawling city. Lyra, in turn, shared stories of her diplomatic challenges, the subtle prejudices she faced even within her own species, and the immense burden of being a beacon of peace for her people. One rainy cycle, while stake out a suspected black market dealer of ancient tech, they found themselves trapped in their speeder by a sudden, violent electrical storm. The power flickered, plunging them into near darkness. Lyra's bioluminescence provided the only light, casting long, shifting shadows. "We are truly alone out here," Lyra observed, her voice quiet. "Always," Kalen replied, looking out at the stormy sky. "But somehow, it feels less so tonight." Lyra turned her head, her emerald eyes meeting his in the dim light. "Perhaps this is the true essence of interspecies harmony, Kalen. Not the grand pronouncements of treaties and alliances, but the quiet moments of shared vulnerability, shared purpose." He nodded, a silent acknowledgement. They were no longer just a human and an alien, bound by an investigation. They were two individuals, burdened by a common goal, learning to navigate not just the intricacies of a murder, but the subtle, beautiful complexities of each other. The bond was forged in the crucible of crisis, strengthened by shared frustration, and illuminated by a growing, unspoken trust. Their differences, once a barrier, now felt like complementary strengths. It wasn't an unholy alliance anymore. It was becoming something else entirely, something quietly profound. The breakthrough came from an unexpected quarter, a fringe Xylosian archivist named Kthar, whom Lyra had contacted based on his obscure online forums discussing ancient prophecies. Kthar, reclusive and eccentric scholar, had spent his life digitizing and analyzing forgotten Xylosian texts. "The crystalline data shard, you say?" Kthar's voice crackled over the comms, a reedy whisper. "Ambassador Vlor reached out to me months ago. He was seeking a specific algorithm, a resonance key, to unlock a hidden layer within the first shard itself." "A resonance key," Lyra prompted, her forearms tensing with anticipation. "Yes," Kthar confirmed. "The first shard prophecies are not merely texts. They are a multi-layered data construct. The outermost layer is the historical narrative. The inner layers, accessible only by a precise bioresonant frequency, contain warnings. Warnings from a pre-contact era, about a specific type of galactic instability, a hidden force, the Void Weavers, they called them." Kalen exchanged a look with Lyra. "Void Weavers? What are they?" "The prophecies describe them as entities that thrive on chaos," Kthar explained, his voice growing more animated. "They do not directly engage in conflict, but manipulate existing tensions, exacerbate divisions, and profit from the ensuing turmoil. They are described as being able to subtly influence minds, to plant ideas of discord, to amplify dormant prejudices." This sent a chill down Kalen's spine. Marcus Thorne, the Purifiers, their sudden escalation in rhetoric, their ability to gather followers so quickly. Could it be an influence, rather than organic growth? Did Vlor find this resonance key? Lyra asked, her voice hushed. He believed he had, Kthar confirmed. He was convinced the key was tied to a unique biological signature, a specific genetic marker, shared by a certain lineage. Whose lineage? Kalen pressed, a jolt of recognition hitting him. The prophecies speak of it vaguely, Kthar admitted. But Vlor had a theory. He believed it was a shared genetic marker between the original inhabitants of certain ancient Xylosian homeworlds and early Terran colonizers. A rare, almost forgotten ancestral link. He was on the verge of confirming it, using his own extensive genetic archive and a unique Terran DNA sample he acquired from an ancient diplomatic exchange record. He was seeking someone with that marker to help him unlock the final layer of the shard. Kalen's mind raced. An ancestral link. a specific genetic marker. He suddenly remembered a conversation from his childhood, a faint memory of his grandmother talking about an incredibly rare, recessive gene in their family line, a marker that peacekeeper medical exams had always flagged as an anomaly, but harmless. He had dismissed it as a quirk. But what if it wasn't? What if it was the resonance key Vlor was looking for? He quickly accessed his personal medical records, bypassing standard privacy firewalls with a special peacekeeper override. He ran a diagnostic against the criteria Kthar had described. The results flashed on his comm unit. Positive match. His genetic marker, a rare anomaly, aligned perfectly with the description of the resonance key. Lyra, Kalen said, his voice strained. I think Vlor was looking for me. Lyra stared at the results, her luminous eyes wide. This is unprecedented. A human, the resonance key to an ancient Xylosian prophecy. This completely changes everything. It means Vlor wasn't just killed for the shard, Kalen concluded. He was killed because he was close to unlocking its final secrets, secrets that could expose the Void Weavers. And the killer knew about the resonance key. They wanted to stop Vlor, get the shard, and prevent its contents from ever seeing the light of day. And they knew I had the key. The implication hung in the air, chilling them to the bone. The killer wasn't just a xenophobe or a greedy artifact thief. They were an agent of chaos, serving an unseen, ancient enemy, the Void Weavers. And Kalen, unknowingly, held the key to their undoing. The truth, when it finally emerged, was far more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. The revelation of Kalen's genetic marker as the resonance key sent a jolt through the investigation, shifting its entire paradigm. The killer wasn't merely a xenophobe or a thief. They were an agent of something far more insidious. Lyra, still processing the profound implications, accessed a restricted peacekeeper database on ancient galactic threats. The Void Weavers, Lyra explained, projecting a holographic schematic of various historical incidents, are not a species, but a parasitic conceptual entity. They don't occupy physical space. They influence, corrupt, and amplify negative emotions, fear, hatred, greed, across sentient species. They thrive on conflict, feeding on the psychic energy of discord. Their ultimate goal is not conquest, but perpetual chaos, a fracturing of alliances that makes all species vulnerable. So, they're not an army, but an ideology. Kalen muttered, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. More than an ideology, Lyra clarified. They are a primal force. The ancient Xylosian prophecies speak of them emerging during periods of galactic unity, seeking to sow division. They operated subtly, whispering in the minds of vulnerable individuals, turning neighbor against neighbor, species against species. The first contact wore itself. Vlor suspected it was heavily influenced by the Void Weavers, a near-successful attempt to shatter nascent interspecies bonds. And Vlor was about to expose them, Kalen realized, using the first shard. He was going to reveal their existence, their methods, and how to counter them. Precisely, Lyra confirmed. The murder of Vlor, the framing of Marcus Thorne, the theft of the shard. It's all a sophisticated maneuver by the Void Weavers, operating through a human conduit. They needed to silence Vlor, secure the shard, and ensure its secrets remained buried. The chosen human conduit would be someone who already harbored deep-seated prejudice, making them susceptible to influence. They now understood the killer's true motive: to prevent the exposure of the Void Weavers and to plunge the galaxy into renewed conflict, securing their existence by ensuring the galactic peace was irrevocably shattered. But who was the conduit? Who was susceptible to such influence, had the technical skills to modify a weapon, and knew about Kalen's rare genetic marker? They cross-referenced individuals with high-level technical access, knowledge of Xylosian lore, and a history of exposure to the fringes of xenophobic thought, even if they weren't direct members of the Purifiers. One name emerged with unsettling clarity: Dr. Elias Vance. Kalen froze. Dr. Vance? My uncle. Dr. Elias Vance was Kalen's estranged paternal uncle, a brilliant but reclusive xenolinguist who had been ostracized from the family years ago due to his increasingly radical views. He had always been obsessed with pure Terran linguistics, disdaining Xylosian languages as barbaric, despite his professional specialty. He also had a detailed knowledge of ancient Terran technologies and security protocols, having consulted for the Peacekeepers decades ago. Most unsettlingly, Elias had assisted in the original genetic mapping of Kalen's family lineage, due to his own distant relation to the rare marker. He would have known about Kalen's specific genetic anomaly. He has the knowledge, the access, the motive amplified by Void Weaver influence, Lyra stated, her voice grim. And he would have known about your unique genetic signature, Kalen. The truth was a bitter pill. The killer wasn't a random fanatic. It was family. The Void Weavers had found the perfect vessel, someone whose existing prejudices could be subtly stoked into murderous action, someone who could expertly disguise their true motives behind a smokescreen of xenophobia. The revelation was not just a twist in the case. It was a personal betrayal, a testament to the insidious nature of the ancient, unseen enemy. Kalen's blood ran cold. The fight was no longer just about peace. It was about protecting his own. The confrontation was set in a desolate, forgotten research outpost on the fringes of the sector, a place where Dr. Elias Vance had once conducted obscure linguistic studies. Its decaying, rust-stained walls and flickering internal lights painted a picture of a mind in decline, perfectly mirroring the man who now resided within. Kalen and Lyra approached cautiously, their Peacekeeper anti-gravity stealth vehicle silent against the howling winds of the barren planet. They had chosen to confront Elias alone, believing that a direct, personal approach might be the only way to retrieve the shard and prevent further escalation. Peacekeeper backup was on standby, a silent fleet orbiting far above. They found Elias in a cavernous central laboratory, surrounded by blinking holographic displays filled with esoteric Xylosian script and ancient Terran schematics. He was hunched over a workstation, the crystalline data shard pulsating with a faint, violet light on a custom-built interface. As they entered, the air crackled with a malevolent energy, a subtle distortion that Lyra immediately recognized as the influence of the Void Weavers. Elias looked up, his eyes bloodshot, his face gaunt. A chilling, knowing smile spread across his lips. Kalen, and the ambassador, I presume you've connected the dots. His voice was raspy, laced with a triumphant madness. Took you long enough. The Xylosian was too close. He was going to expose them. And you would have opened the gate. You killed Vlor, Kalen stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, though his heart hammered against his ribs. And you framed Marcus Thorne to cover your tracks. A necessary evil, Elias scoffed, his gaze darting around the room as if addressing unseen entities. The galaxy is weak. This peace is an illusion of fragile, sickening compromise. The Void Weavers, they showed me the truth. Conflict is the natural state. It purifies. It strengthens. And I am merely helping it along. Lyra stepped forward, her bioluminescence flaring with intensity. You are a pawn, Elias Vance, a vessel for an ancient parasitic entity that feeds on chaos. You are destroying everything that Ambassador Vlor worked for, everything we have built. Elias let out a cackling laugh. Destroy? No, Ambassador. I am merely removing the restraints. Humanity cannot achieve its true potential shackled by alien empathy. The Xylosian alliance, the corruption of our spirit, and Vlor's prophecies. He was a fool, trying to warn us about the very force that would set us free. He gestured to the crystalline shard, his eyes gleaming with a mad fervor. This is the key to proving humanity's superiority, and once I activate it with Kalen's unique signature, the truth will be undeniable. Kalen realized the horrifying twist. Elias didn't understand the shard's true purpose. He believed it would prove humanity's dominance, when in fact, it would expose the Void Weavers as manipulators of conflict. The Void Weavers had twisted his perception, convincing him that chaos was power, and that by shattering peace, he was aiding humanity. You're wrong, Uncle, Kalen said, slowly stepping forward, his hand subtly moving towards his concealed Peacekeeper stunner. Vlor wasn't trying to prove human superiority. He was trying to expose the thing that uses us, that turns us against each other. Elias's smile faltered, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, quickly replaced by a surge of renewed fanaticism. Lies. Distractions. You're just another one of their puppets. He lunged, not at Kalen, but at the control panel beside the shard, his intention clearly to force Kalen's hand to the interface. Lyra moved with a swiftness Kalen hadn't seen before, her forearms blurring. She intercepted Elias, her lithe body twisting, deflecting his attack. But Elias was not unskilled, boosted by a dark, unnatural energy. He pulled a concealed Class 3 energy blade, identical to the murder weapon, and lashed out. Kalen fired a stunner, a blue bolt arcing through the air. Elias, surprisingly agile, dodged, the bolt harmlessly impacting the wall behind him. The fight was on. Lyra engaged Elias directly, using her Xylosian combat training, deflecting his blade with her hardened forearm scales. Kalen moved to flank, aiming to disarm. The energy in the room intensified, the air growing heavy, the insidious whispers of the Void Weavers palpable. They weren't just fighting Elias, they were fighting the dark influence that possessed him. The struggle against Elias Vance was short but brutal. Amplified by the Void Weaver's insidious influence, he fought with a deranged strength, his energy blade flashing with lethal intent. Lyra, despite her diplomatic role, proved to be a formidable opponent, her movements fluid and precise, deflecting Elias's wild swings and seeking openings. Kalen, utilizing his peacekeeper training, aimed for quick disarms and incapacitation, knowing that simply harming Elias wouldn't break the Void Weaver's hold. Finally, Lyra managed a sweeping kick that momentarily knocked Elias off balance, and Kalen seized the opportunity. He lunged, grappling for the energy blade. With a grunt, he twisted the weapon from Elias's hand, throwing it clattering across the floor. As he did, Elias's eyes, momentarily cleared of the madness, met Kalen's. In that fleeting moment, Kalen saw not hate, but a flicker of tragic recognition, a brief spark of the uncle he once knew, before the Void Weaver's grip reasserted itself, twisting his face into a snarl. Kalen delivered a precise peacekeeper nerve pinch, designed to incapacitate without lasting harm. Elias collapsed, his body trembling as the dark energy that had surged around him seemed to dissipate, leaving him a hollow, gasping shell of a man. Lyra, breathing heavily, knelt beside him. The influence it is receding, but his mind it is deeply scarred. Kalen secured the crystalline data shard. Its violet light, no longer malevolent, pulsed softly. We need to get him medical attention and secure this. Within minutes, the Peacekeeper Rapid Response Team, alerted by a silent signal from Kalen, descended upon the outpost. Elias Vance was taken into custody, immediately transferred to a secure medical facility specializing in psychic and neurological rehabilitation. The crystalline data shard was brought to a secure Peacekeeper vault, its secrets awaiting a more stable time to be safely unveiled. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of political maneuvers and public addresses. Director Sharma and Ambassador Lyra jointly announced the apprehension of Ambassador Vlor's killer. They carefully framed the narrative, explaining the discovery of the Void Weaver influence without causing mass panic. They emphasized that Elias Vance was a tragic victim of an ancient, manipulative force whose actions were an anomaly, not a reflection of humanity's true intentions. Marcus Thorne and the Purifiers were revealed as unwitting pawns, their extremist views amplified and exploited by a higher, unseen power. The revelation sent shockwaves, but surprisingly, it fostered a new kind of unity. The concept of an ancient, insidious enemy that preyed on division resonated across species. It shifted the blame from a specific species to a universal threat. The Xylosians, understanding the subtle nature of the Void Weavers, felt a renewed empathy for humanity, recognizing that any species could be susceptible to such influence. Public fear slowly began to recede, replaced by a cautious optimism. The peace, though scarred, held. The murder of Ambassador Vlor, meant to shatter their alliance, had instead, paradoxically, strengthened it by revealing a shared, insidious enemy that transcended species lines. Kalen and Lyra stood side by side during the joint press conference, their presence a powerful symbol of the renewed trust. As the hollow cameras flashed, Kalen glanced at Lyra. Her skin glowed with a healthy, vibrant green, and her eyes held a steady, hopeful light. The journey had forged an unbreakable bond between them, a testament to the resilience of their alliance and the enduring strength of the peace they had fought so hard to preserve. The trial of Elias Vance was unlike any other in galactic history. It was held before a newly formed interstellar tribunal, composed of legal representatives from the Terran Commonwealth, the Xylosian Consensus, and observers from several other allied species. The court debated not just a crime, but the very nature of culpability when a mind has been influenced by an external, non-physical entity. Kalen and Lyra testified extensively, detailing their investigation, the discovery of the crystalline data shard, and the insidious nature of the Void Weavers. Peacekeepers and linguists presented evidence of the Void Weaver's influence on Elias Vance's neural patterns, showing how his latent prejudices had been amplified and twisted. The tribunal's verdict was unprecedented. Elias Vance was found guilty of the murder of Ambassador Vlor, but with the crucial mitigating factor: diminished capacity due to external malign influence. He was sentenced not to traditional imprisonment, but to indefinite rehabilitation and psychological reintegration at a specialized interspecies facility. The goal was not punishment, but healing, both for Elias and for the galaxy. The crystalline data shard, once its secrets were safely extracted and analyzed in a shielded environment, revealed a comprehensive history of the Void Weaver's influence throughout galactic history, identifying key periods of discord they had exacerbated. More importantly, it contained bioresonant frequencies and cognitive exercises that could strengthen sentient minds against their insidious whispers. This knowledge became a new cornerstone of interspecies education and psychological well-being programs. Marcus Thorne and the members of the Purifiers were also tried. While their xenophobic rhetoric was condemned, their direct involvement in Vlor's murder was disproven. They were found guilty of inciting hatred and illegal possession of ancient weapons, receiving sentences of mandatory re-education and community service, focusing on interspecies cultural exchange. The emphasis was on rehabilitation and understanding, reflecting the new galactic resolve to counter the forces of division with unity. The trial was a painful but necessary process. It exposed the galaxy to the concept of the Void Weavers, forcing a re-evaluation of past conflicts and prejudices. It was a stark reminder that true peace required eternal vigilance, not just against overt threats, but against the subtle whispers that sought to divide. The Joint Colonization Initiative, once threatened, was relaunched, but with revised protocols incorporating the lessons learned from the Void Weaver threat. Greater emphasis was placed on mental fortitude, cultural understanding, and early detection of divisive influences. Lyra and Kalen were instrumental in drafting these new guidelines, their shared experience giving them unique insight. The peace held. It was no longer a naive, unquestioned state, but a conscious, hardened commitment. It had been tested, nearly broken, and ultimately made stronger.